I think we have to look at this as a large game of empire chess, and those pieces on the board won't necessarily respond to the king or queen directly. So I think the clarity of mission and thought is important to the strategic thinking we must now introduce to the situation. The last administration had no ability to either formulate or execute strategic thinking. And I think Jim would agree with me that their basic methodology was chaos. And this is one of the challenges now we're facing, is trying to bring some level of clarity to the chaos they created, as well as speak truth to power and try to understand what we need to do. The bottom line here is that, and Pete, Jim, and I have worked on a project to advise senior members of DoD. Within the context of that project, we recognized in our work that everything is linked. You cannot simply address Qatar without understanding what effects are going to happen on Iran and North Korea. It's all related. So I think we have to break down and establish, if you will, a vision for which we want to achieve. We have to understand where we want to go before we can get anyone else to follow us. And I think that's where President Trump is somewhat moving now, the idea of a grand strategy, if you will, something we've recognized the need to have. From that grand strategy, then, you can use our allies and like-minded countries to start going against some of these rogue families. We've recognized this in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabian nation doesn't necessarily move with a great deal of clarity of where it wants to go, because you have family interests within the context of that, as we learned during the 9/11 attacks. So within the context of what we can do within the London Center is bring some level of synchronicity, of attempting to understand the levers, as Pete just said. The Qatar and our base, there can be a lever point. One of the things that I've been speaking about a great deal in the media and otherwise is the idea of building on General Joseph Dunford's, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, successful strategy of by, through, and with, the idea of using our allies to carry the heavy lifting within the context of our ability. Going back to the Turks for a second, one of the things that the Turks, I think you would agree with this idea that the Turks may have aspirational interests of having great influence, but without the logistical support of a military such as ours, it's all without real ability. 3,000 troops left to their own devices without heavy airlift. Everything else is simply a fodder for terrorist attack. So I think we have to recognize that as much as people will talk big, their ability to follow through is completely lacking. We still have the ability to do these great things. They do not. And with that said, we now have a president who's willing to do great things with our military where the other one was not. So I think we have to recognize there's a balance to be had between military strength and clear and concise thinking about objectives. One of the things about the Reagan era, and our fellow friend Bud McFarlane is one of the folks who've been influencing and informing our thinking, is the idea of trying to be very clear with our allies, working very swiftly and directly with those who wish to help us. And again, stability should be the focus. One of the things we have put forth as an idea to help both focus the region on what's important, as well as counter the Iranian influences and expansion and aspirations, is something called the Gulf and Red Sea Treaty Organization, GRSTO, an Arab NATO. This Arab NATO concept does essentially lack the Article 5 element for any number of political reasons, which we could talk about in more detail if necessary, but I think people recognize simply trying to build on this tapestry of capability that Joe Dunford and Joe Votel have been able to build within the context of the coalition that we now have facing ISIS. We need to actually move that into the realm of civil military. And I would ask you all to remember the fact that we have trained every Middle Eastern military for the past 30 years. Military academies, they all go to our schools. General al-Sisi, President al-Sisi, Field Marshal al-Sisi is a graduate of the Army War College. And one of our senior fellows, Tony Shaffer, was former commandant there, and we talked in great detail about how important it was for, I believe, then Colonel al-Sisi to become educated to understand how we work as a military. And this is one of the reasons we proposed politically, I don't know how this will go over with folks, that Egypt should play a major role in whatever we do regarding a Gulf and Red Sea Treaty Organization, based on the understanding of our two nations and where we want to go. So simply put, I see the Qatar thing as but one more indicator that we must first and foremost define our own strategic vision for the region, try to clarify what we wish to achieve, and then go about organizing our allies and our friends in such a way to understand that we must look at the whole to understand how to affect this one element. And then at the same time, bring military clarity and capability to the region that will be effective in going after ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other threats which are clearly there. And the third point would have to be combining them both together to defeat the ideology of radical Islam. I did a rant over the weekend on my Facebook talking about the fact that as much as we have religious groups within our own country with extreme views, the Amish are not going to be sending out jihadists to attack the White House because people drive cars and not horse and buggies. So it's not an issue of radicalism or extremism. The issue is obviously there's an element of Islam which has become completely cancerous and is out to destroy everything, to include other elements of Islam. I cite for you very quickly a meeting I had, that Bud McFarlane and I had with General Al-Tohimi back in 2013, who was then the chief of Egyptian intelligence. And he said clearly, says, I am a loyal member of the Islamic faith, but we have to understand there are elements within our own faith which wish to destroy us and the faith. And he cited for us the Muslim Brotherhood, which is, I think, the underlying problem that has been infecting the entire region. So this is where I think we must, enemy is, understand the tools we have to deal with the enemy, and go about working with individuals, groups, to have an established mission which they share that we can move forward to address.